Proszę Państwa, ja nazywam się Paweł Felic, witam serdecznie na ostatnim w tym roku spotkaniu tutaj na festiwalu w Gazeta Cafe. Mam wielką przyjemność powitać Państwa i naszego wyjątkowego gościa, pan Carlos Reygadasem. Witamy serdecznie. Jak zawsze oczywiście Państwo mogą zadawać pytania. Teodor ma mikrofon i może w każdym momencie go podać. You can ask a question in Polish or in English as you prefer. Ja najpierw chciałem zapytać o taką rzecz, która może się wydać nieco śmieszna, ale też być może jest w tym jakiś trop, który warto by pociągnąć. Chodzi mi o Pana jedną z pierwszych prac, czy jakąś ważną pracę, mówię o zajmowaniu się konfliktami zbrojnymi w ONZ. Niewiele o tym wiemy, ale jakby nie tyle chciałbym zapytać Pana o tą pracę, ile o to, w jakim stopniu bycie reżyserem jest podobne do tego, co robił Pan wtedy. Co te dwa zajęcia łączą? Czy one są jakąś konsekwencją siebie nawzajem, czy też są zupełnie czymś innym? Jak to wygląda?
In one aspect, they are similar, and it's the same aspect that makes all kind of works similar, which is that in both you can be creative, and that if you work creatively, you do things well. But the amount of creativity that something like law accepts is a lower amount than the amount you can create in cinema, I suppose. And life is much better being a filmmaker than being a lawyer. That is for sure, for me at least. I prefer to be here with you, even though we're so hot and everything, than being in Mexico now or whatever else in an office, you know. Well, now it would be my Saturday, so I would be with my family and my grandmother eating. But then on Monday I would put my tie on again and I would go to the law cabinet, you know.
Ale czy są jakieś doświadczenia z tamtej pracy, które się przydają w ogóle w reżyserowaniu filmów?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, of course, everything you do is shows or comes from everything you've thought, everything you've done, everything you've seen, everything you've imagined. So everything I have lived through makes me be what I am. So, of course, I'm sure if I had studied something else, especially film, I most probably wouldn't be a filmmaker. Seriously. I don't know, but see, I just think that this it was luck only because I didn't plan it. It happened this way, but I feel lucky that I studied something else. I don't know. Probably if someone asked me for some advice and he said he wanted to be a painter or a filmmaker, for example, I would suggest that they probably study philosophy or history or something like that.
Ale ta fascynacja filmami, rozumiem, że jednak pojawiła się wcześniej bardzo.
Around when I was 15 or 16 years old, 16 I think. But I thought it would be just a hobby, like, you know, or not really a hobby, but just a fascination, as you say. Like, I have also like music and painting throughout my life. I didn't know it would be something stronger than that. I actually liked cinema very, very much, and I looked at a lot of cinema, but I also heard a lot of music. And eventually, when I wanted to change my life, my ordinary everyday life, because I have to say I liked what I did in law. That was because it was international public law that is very different from, for example, business law or things like that, or criminal law. And cinema was probably like, almost in the beginning, it was like a pretext to get out of that life. That was like the only way I could switch to another life. And so I chose cinema because I thought maybe it was accessible to me, because becoming a musician would have been impossible because I don't have any talent for that. So maybe I thought probably I would have some talent for cinema, so I tried.
Powiedział Pan o tym, że były również fascynacje muzyką wcześniej, książkami. Kiedy patrzy się na kino ostatnich 50 lat, 60, ono się zrobiło jakby coraz bardziej, właściwie można powiedzieć, zbliża się do literatury. To jest właściwie kino jest kinem narracyjnym dzisiaj przede wszystkim. Pan tego kina narracyjnego nie lubi. Dlaczego?
It's not that I don't like it. It's that I don't think cinema is illustrated literature. Unfortunately, most things that are presented as cinema are illustrated literature. If you analyze what the language of cinema is and the language of theater or literature, you will see that it is very similar to what we see mostly in cinemas. It's like a book that has drawings, basically. It works like that. It works in the sense of making sense in a Platonic way, in the sense of conceptualizing. So it's like a tree, and then you show a tree, and then a man comes, and then he takes out an axe and cuts down the tree, and then you understand, so you move on. So it's only about informing you what's going on so the story can be told, as if I was telling you a story right now. But in opposition to that, just think of the art of painting. The story, you have a lot of stories in painting. Mostly there are stories, but it's never about the stories. I've said this yesterday, and I'm sorry to repeat it, but it's just not. A simple example is the painting of the Prodigal Son by Rembrandt, who is in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. You know all the story about the Prodigal Son. So the father is there holding his son who has come back, and all this, and you can tell the story. Most people that go there, unfortunately, even in painting, they don't really look at the painting, but they are informed by the guide about what the painting is about. So they tell the story of the Prodigal Son. Even there, the literary approach to painting is very strong, you know, for most tourists. But some people that go and really see the painting, and there's an essay by I don't remember whom that spent like a year or so in going to the Hermitage looking at the Prodigal Son by Rembrandt. I don't know if you know it. I don't know if it's Bulgakov or someone like that. Well, he went there like during a whole year, and then he wrote a huge book about the painting. So it's not the story in the painting that matters. If I painted the same story, it wouldn't be there. It's about how Rembrandt painted that story, and therefore how it is enlightened. You can almost see like the spirit of what the story means through the love of the father and the love of the son that comes back, and that's what matters. So in cinema, I think it works in a very similar way. Cinema in the end is photography and sound. Of course, it's photography that moves, but it's photography. So what you can get is capturing the actual presence of someone, or the being of a place, the being of a tree, the being of a building, of an object, of water, of individuals. So this is why I often say that cinema is also not about acting. When people ask me about non-actors, why do I choose amateurs and all this, I just say that it's like you asked a painter or a portrait photographer, why doesn't he paint actors? Like he said, why should I? Well, it's like if you ask me, why don't I paint truck drivers or something like that, you know? It's just that they don't belong in this art or language. And as you say, it's curious enough that in the beginning it wasn't so much like that. It's turning more and more that way. You know, even since the very beginning there was the famous Kuleshov effect, which all cinema students know about, which is amazing, and it's like essential to cinema, to the language of cinema, but it is so rarely followed in cinema because, well, maybe because cinema became more or less nothing more than a business. Everything turned into this illustrated literature, something like that. I mean, not everything. Still, the history of cinema is being made by people that are in another channel, I think, mostly.
Ale ja miałem, pamiętam, 2 dni temu taką długą rozmowę z widzami tego festiwalu, taką nieformalną też z dziennikarzami piszącymi o filmach. Zastanawialiśmy się, który odbiór pana filmu panu by bardziej odpowiadał. Czy te filmy są raczej zaproszeniem do tego, żeby próbować poskładać sobie je interpretacyjnie w głowie i żeby znaleźć do nich jakiś własny klucz, żeby sobie ten własny świat zbudować we mnie, w widzu, czy też żeby po prostu dać się uwieść kolejnym obrazom, dźwiękom i tym, co one w danym momencie z moimi emocjami robią. Która z tych dróg odbioru jest panu bliższa?
The way of music is the most interesting way to approach cinema, I think. In music, nobody says like I didn't understand, or what is it about, or how do I interpret this piano concerto, you know. We sit down, we feel it, and maybe some people get bored, some people go to ecstasies, and that's the way it goes. But you just hear the music, and this doesn't mean that you cannot even write about it or anything like that. You know, you can read music critics writing about a piece of music, and that is a very interesting approach that we can also have in cinema, which is basically feeling, and feeling in the end is understanding. And of course you can also interpret, you know, especially for example if you think of Wagner, there are so many things and so many stories behind and what it means, and of course that place opens up for interpretation. But the problem is approaching let's say films that are not monodirectional as if they were riddles instead. Like you have to find out, like in a children's game, what this means and what this doesn't mean and things like that. You know, maybe a good example is a film like Mulholland Drive by Lynch, where some people said things like, "I know what it means," or "You can find the clues in the internet. There's some explanation." You know, it's I've read things by Lynch saying that these people are totally crazy. He's never thought of that, and some people think he's provoking, but I'm sure he's totally serious. There's nothing like that. Understanding is a question of feeling a certain logic, which is not necessarily a mechanical logic to things, but an emotional an emotional thing that makes sense, emotional sense, maybe. But this all sounds like very strange because we live in the center of the monotheist Western world, and because we watch films that are literature since we're very young. So we take those things like that. All this sounds strange, but in the end, but it's just very simple what I'm saying.
Może też sztuka rzeczywiście się zmienia i oddala się trochę od tego, co jest w miarę komunikatywne, czasem dosłowne, ale co może też w taki bardzo prosty sposób przejąć odbiorcę.
I think both things are right. On one hand, there's a point when it is a question also of personal taste, and where you can really say, I don't like this, and I just don't want to watch it, for example, or don't want to listen to it. That is on one hand, and then on another hand, there's a point also where we have to acknowledge, but we don't, because we're usually very proud, that there are certain things that we don't understand, and that's it, you know. But of course you cannot say, well, you didn't like it because you don't understand. Well, but the truth is that you can say that because this can be real, you know. Like, you know, like I have some of my, I have a cousin that is into Penderecki, and he's a composer, a music composer, and he composes some really strange music that doesn't have any melody or anything, and I personally feel I don't understand it, and I know he must be great. A lot of people say he's great. He's composing. He's making a lot he's being published, you know, and then some experts say he's wonderful, but I don't understand it. So I stop there. But like me saying that shit would be like really a little stupid on my side, I think. So some things we don't understand, you know, like my mother commenting on football, for example, would be ridiculous. She doesn't understand. That's all. She really doesn't. She only sees people running around. She doesn't understand what they're doing, which is, and we cannot understand everything. So maybe we don't understand certain things. We need to have when first time we drink alcohol, usually we don't like it. But then later, maybe if we drink a lot, eventually we like the taste of it, you know, the actual taste. There are many questions that are a matter of habit, and you need to take more time. And of course, if the only thing you've seen in your life is films like Batman, and eventually they take you to see a Bela Tarr film, you will not like it. But it's the same thing as if you eat McDonald's every day and one day you drink, I don't know, you eat something more difficult or more special, pierogi, whatever, you'll say it's horrible. You know? But if you've eaten it since you were born, you love it.
No właśnie nie wiem, czy Pan sobie z tego zdaje sprawę, ale ten festiwal w pewnym sensie taką rolę właśnie odgrywa. To znaczy, pamiętam wiele lat temu, kiedy pokazywany był Pana film Japon, jeszcze w Cieszynie na tym festiwalu, to on był, powiedzmy, szokujący dla widowni, dla młodej publiczności, ale właśnie ten festiwal z tego rodzaju sztuką oswaja i mam wrażenie, że właśnie dzieje się to, o czym Pan mówił, że to jest takie trochę kształtowanie gustu, otwartości na coś, co jest inne, co wymaga może innych narzędzi odbiorczych. No i dlatego dzisiaj tutaj Pan jest na tym festiwalu właściwie odbierany już niemal jak klasyk współczesnego kina.
Surely, I agree with you. It's a matter of contact. The possibility of people in Wrocław liking films like we've been talking about is probably much higher than, I don't know, in some other place of Poland far away where there are only multiplexes showing Hollywood films. You know, it's acquired taste. I don't know if you can say that in English, but in Spanish that's a typical way to say it. Gusto adquirido, acquired taste. It's something like a taste that it doesn't come directly, but goes on through contact and learning how to feel certain things, like wine, for example.
Wspomniał Pan o mamie i o futbolu. Skąd ten pomysł, który podobno wyszedł od Pana, żeby właśnie tutaj pokazać ten dodatkowy futbolowy film właśnie na tym festiwalu? Skąd taki pomysł? Skąd w ogóle ten futbol?
Well, that's a piece I made some years ago, and it was invited. It wasn't really my idea. I just said it was fine with me. Basically, I wanted to make just a short piece like that, a simple thing, for two reasons. One was because I wanted to. I really enjoy to see these women playing football, because they are really in there very much for the pleasure of it. They are really usually in that level of sport much less competitive than men, and they enjoy the game more. So they are laughing, and I just like that kind of game, you know, playing. And the other was that I've always been very skeptical about contemporary art and that kind of thing. So I really wanted to see how difficult it was and how, if it could sell or whatever. And then I realized that yes, that making that kind of thing can give you maybe more money than making films, but it costs about less than 1% of the effort of making a film. I just wanted to try that.